Hello everyone and welcome back to the Silicon Nubian YouTube channel where we're all about things tech. Taking a look at another very famous Linux distribution but with a twist. If you've looked at or seen my earlier Linux distribution overviews and reviews, you'll know one of the themes that comes out of my reviews is I really do like rolling release model distributions. That is, distributions where you install once and through a constant stream of updates, the distribution remains current, and the idea is you'll never have to install it again when a new version comes out because you'll always be up to date. One of the granddaddies of Linux distributions is Suse, or OpenSuse, who presently have a non-rolling release called OpenSuse Leap, which I've looked at prior in one of the previous videos I've made, and I liked it quite a bit. But it is a conservative distribution, meaning it strives for absolute stability. It shies away from using more current software, and it's great for corporate, small business environments, larger corporate environments, and of course the discerning home user. Since 2014, though, OpenSuse or Suse have created a separate arm of the OpenSuse world called OpenSuse Tumbleweed. Tumbleweed is their full rolling release version of OpenSuse containing the latest stable versions of all software instead of relying on the rigid and spaced apart periodic release cycles. It's designed for users who are very demanding of running the latest of everything. Let's just put it like that. You want the latest software, it's in there. While it's based on the factory OpenSuse main development code base, it's not based on necessarily the repositories that Leap would use. It's more current development repositories. Don't let the word development scare you. The software does go through at least some testing prior to being included for release, and it's proven itself to be very stable, as I found with my main OS at home, which is Manjaro Linux. So let's boot right in. This is post installation. This is what it looks like. So we're going to boot right in and start to poke around the desktop. The version that I've installed uses the Gnome Desktop, not the more common Plasma, KDE Plasma. On my Manjaro boxes that I use at home, I'm generally running Cinnamon or XFCE, but Gnome is a nice departure. It's a different paradigm in terms of usage, but I have found that it's quite useful, easy to use, and of course, just as powerful as some of the other ones like KDE and whatnot. So here we have the post-installation desktop, very sparse. Something that I actually like. I don't like desktops with tons of icons all over it. So this is what it looks like. A little bit more before we start poking around. So again, this release, the Tumbleweed release of OpenSuse, is for users who want packages that are newer than what are available in the OpenSuse Leap repositories. I'm reading right here. It says this includes but is not limited to an updated Linux kernel, Samba, Git, desktops, Office applications, and many other packages. So you're getting much more current packages here. Of course, the danger is that these newer packages may lead to a greater level of instability. Now, I can't speak for OpenSuse Tumbleweed, although what I've read is that it is very stable, but I've very rarely, if ever, had issues with Manjaro. So I'm very comfortable with the direction that OpenSuse Tumbleweed has taken with respect to being a rolling release. It should appeal to power users most definitely. There is one caveat though. If you run a lot of third-party software, in particular proprietary video drivers, you could run into issues at times as the video driver releases from the manufacturers don't always keep up with the latest kernel release. Of course, that would mean that in some extreme cases you have to compile the driver, But NVIDIA has been pretty good about that. And to be honest with you, if you're running an AMD card, in particular, if you're running the 400 or 500 latest series of Radeon, I don't think you're going to have a problem at all. The latest open source drivers for AMD are actually very good. So let's start poking around. Here we have the desktop. Right-clicking on the desktop brings up the change background, where we can change the background for the desktop or the lock screen. We have display settings. Very simple so far. Night light off or on. It's a feature I haven't tried. And here we have the settings panel, which we're going to go into a little bit later. One thing about the OpenSuse releases is that they have a plethora of options with respect to settings, changing settings within the system itself. Let's go to the top right of the taskbar. Actually, we'll start in the center. We click on the time and the day, and we have our notification pop-ups, and we also have our calendar, and you can get weather based on location. Boom, and you'll get your weather. So now it'll tell me few clouds, clear sky, 59 Fahrenheit. I'm sure you can change a lot of that options and whatnot. So here we are. Very good. On the right side we have, it's interesting, if I click on any of these icons I'm going to get the same pop-up. Here we have the sound. Here we have the options for logging out or account settings. And we have our little account settings. And here we have the settings panel, which we saw, which we're going to get to. We can lock the screen, or we can power off or restart. So that's for that side. Okay. If we go up to the activities, right or left click, we can pull this up. Here we have virtual screens. We have two of them. Virtual desktops. Firefox is included as the default web browser, which is fine with me. Of course, being Linux, you can install many other ones if you want, but Firefox is fine. In particular, if you have the sync option enabled, which most modern browsers like Firefox, Opera, and Chrome have, where once I start it up, enter in my information, all your bookmarks and whatever would show up. I might make a video about that, how to do that. Here we go. We have Evolution would be your email client. Empathy, music player. So very simple. LibreOffice Writer. So LibreOffice 5 is the default suite, Office suite, and that's perfect with me. This is what I use both in Linux and on the Windows platforms. GNOME File Manager. Very simple, but very simple, but very functional. Okay. And a document viewer. Very good. We move down to show all applications, and we could see that's frequent, and we move to all, and then we could see everything that's been installed that comes pre-installed. We have Cheese, which is a webcam, something to operate and manipulate your webcams, calculator, chess, a few games installed for those who have some idle time, clocks, contacts, desktop search. You can look around, dictionary. I'm not going to go through all of them. Of course, we have the full LibreOffice suite, which I like. GIMP, the stellar graphic manipulation program for graphics. LibreOffice logs, again, maps, Mahjong. Notes, a sticky note app. Music, of course, Minds, package sources, package updater, photos, and whatnot. Settings, we'll get into that again. Software, text editor, transmission for transmission is a client for file transfers, for example, torrents and whatnot. We have utilities. Here we have archive manager, disk usage analyzer, password keeper kind of software, disks. That's pretty good. So that's a It's a category within itself. Videos, weather, of course, Yast 2 modules. We're going to get into that. Claim to fame again for OpenSuse. So you have a lot of stuff that's installed. We have a software it's a software catalog. Maybe I should give it a little time to load so you can get a look at it. Takes a little while to load, but we have all in these. It's basically a catalog for software. Doesn't seem to be working that super well post install. Again, what's great to show is not just what works, but what maybe doesn't work. That could just be an aberration because it looked like it was trying to load. So let's continue. Okay, so let's go to the settings panel. Here we have the OpenSuse setting panel. Let me hide that. Of course, I'm running this in a virtual machine. OpenSuse setting panel, we have the tweak tool, where you can tweak all kind of different little things with respect to the look, feel, and operation of the operating system. That's one real strength of OpenSuse, and of course carried over to Tumbleweed, is the level of configuration via GUI configuration daemons that you can run and change the settings quite easily. Now, it might be a little bit overwhelming for the newbie, but for those who are moderate or expert level Linux users, this is a plus. So we can do things like change desktop elements with respect to the desktop. You could put icons on the desktop. Boom, the icons show up on the desktop. We can turn that off. Stretch, we can do background location of all the backgrounds, desktop wallpapers, lock screen backgrounds. Here we have extensions. We could add extensions, much like in KDE Plasma, fonts, keyboard, mouse, power, startup applications, a whole bunch of stuff that can be changed here. Here we have privacy with respect to screen lock. Location services can be turned on or off. Usage history, purge, trash and temporary files. Displays, color, Bluetooth support is there. Mouse and touchpad, keyboard, power, printer, sound, Wacom tablet, date, time, details. We can see that I'm running an AMD Ryzen processor. I've only given it 4 cores for this. OpenSuse Tumbleweed. And we can go to default applications. Interesting here, we could also check for updates right there, which is interesting. In the update manager, and we'll say that software is up to date. Default applications, removable media, what to do when certain removable media are added. And here we have sharing, users, and Yast. So let's go to Yast. This is going to require authentication. And here we go. Yast and Yast 2 are some of the diamonds, if you want to call it, in the OpenSuse world. They allow you to configure so much within the operating system, make it quite simple for you. Add-on products, online update, hardware information. It's going to probe your hardware and tell you what you have and what you don't have. It's got printer, scanner, system, sound, fonts, bootloader, kernel settings. Some of these settings are not necessarily good for a newbie, for example. They might be a little bit overwhelming. I'm going to get to that in a second. But they allow the experienced user to have a fine-grained control over a plethora of elements within the operating system itself. Partitioner, services manager. So it's going to pull up all the services that are running. Reading service status. Okay, NFS client, Samba server, remote administration, of course using VNC. We have virtualization, install your hypervisor. I mean, really, this is what makes Suse so powerful, is you can twist it and turn it so many different ways. And we're only looking at the first category. Go to hardware, we're down, of course, system, app armor, security software, firewall, security center and hardening, sudo, of course, users and groups, snapper for screenshots, system log, system D. Actually, I think that's not for screenshots. I think snapper is for snapshots of the system. Somebody can correct me on that. And we have so much different control here, it's incredible, of different elements within the operating system itself, which can really make using OpenSuse very simple and at the same time very powerful. And here we have our services that are running. We can see that a lot of them have been disabled and some are enabled, such as App Armor. We have, this is so easy to change. We can enable, we can disable with a double click. Very easy. Okay. Here we have the hardware information tool, pulls up a lot. A lot. Okay. Keyboard, memory, main memory, mouse, everything you want to know about your system. Good for troubleshooting and whatnot. Let me go into here for a second. We can see that this post-install, at the time that I've downloaded and installed this, the kernel running is the Linux 4.12.9-1 default kernel, x64 kernel running. So that's good. And if you just poke a little further, we have the Yast 2 modules, firewall, date and time, bootloader. We've all seen this in Yast as well. Network settings, network services. Of course, needs authentication. There we have DHCP, devices. So, really not a million things to show you, which is good. It comes fairly lean. I would call it lean for a desktop OS. So let's run down what we've noticed about it, or what I've noticed about it. I like it. It is running in a virtual machine, as you've seen. Performance is more than acceptable. I have not given it the full 8 or 16 cores of my Ryzen. I haven't given it. It's running under a virtual machine with 4 gigs of RAM. It's running quite well. It's very snappy. SSDs, of course. How would I rate this? I like it. I like it a lot. I like the fact that it's a rolling release, yet it's OpenSuse. So you get the best of both worlds. I've heard good things about it. Performance, I would give it a very high rating. It's very hard to tell in the desktop environment when you're running in a virtual environment, because you're not really running on real hardware. If anything, I find that systems tend to run slower or more quirky in virtual machines than they would on real hardware. So if I extrapolate that to what I'm seeing here with OpenSuse, I would say that performance is very good. How would the after installation experience, or the how would you call that? I would say that I would recommend OpenSuse for moderate to experienced Linux users, only because there's so much configuration that you're able to do with the system. I still would call it newbie friendly, but I would be a little bit more uncomfortable with that, as opposed to introducing it to someone who was at least had some experience with operating systems, and even if it's just a moderate amount. Is it a viable option? Absolutely. Absolutely a viable option with respect to your choice of a Linux distribution. What tends to happen in the Linux world is a lot of newbies or even people who've been in Linux for quite a while will get a distribution and basically hop around distributions, meaning they will try many different distributions over time and eventually settle on one. As you've been in it for quite a while, you will try a lot. I would say that add OpenSuse Leap, and if you like rolling release distributions, definitely take a look at Tumbleweed and see if it's something that you can deal with. I think that for the moderate to advanced Linux user, it's very easy to get started in it, to set it up and get it working just the way you want it. So that's my quick overview and look at OpenSuse Tumbleweed. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel. Also check out our hardcore group for people who build PCs and modify PCs, PC Construction Zone, and our other groups that are available that are related to this channel, and I'll put them down in the description box down below the video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.